Hello everybody, my name is Kara, and today I'm here with the Humbook Tag. This tag was originally created by Kate from Chapter Kate, who is also the one who tagged me. I will link their original video down below, and let's get into complaining about some things that I don't like in books. And I think for all of my answers here, I kind of kept them pretty superficial ones, which I think is in the spirit of the tag. Like, these are not like actually harmful or problematic or bad things in books. Basically, I'm just gonna be petty. So I'm excited about it. Also, if you're wondering about the like slightly weird or off-center filming angle, Nala is currently hanging out right here, like exactly in the middle of where I need to sit. So that's why I'm a little bit to the side. Question number 1, what kind of cover art immediately turns you off of a book? And I think this is actually kind of similar to Kate's answer. And my answer for this is like that very specific and yet generic kind of like 80s and 90s dude fantasy, basically. Fantasy and science fiction, I should say, because there's a lot of overlap in the like cover art styles. I don't really know how else to explain it, but the Way of Kings series by Brandon Sanderson, or the Stormlight Archive series, they kind of do that too, and that's a series I really want to get to, and those covers just like completely turn me off. And I thought about doing the UK covers, except that they split the book into 2 parts, and I don't think I really want that. And then like they released the 4th US cover, and I think that one is actually like pretty looking, so I don't know, a very superficial dilemma, but here I am. And also I have read really good books that have this kind of style of cover, but there's just something about them that like really turns me off. I don't know if it like reminds me of books with that style that I haven't liked or what, but just not my vibe. Number 2 is, what do you hate most on a book cover, not related to design? And for me, that has to be vague reviews instead of giving a synopsis on the back of the book. I find that so irritating. It's like just these really like confusing, meaningless descriptions and like strings of adjectives or adverbs where it's like a glittering debut, revolutionary, changes the face of fiction, or like whatever it is. It's like, that's great that the New York Times liked this book, but it doesn't tell me anything about what this story is actually about, and I really don't like that. Number 3, when reading a synopsis, what could make you want to yeet the book across the bookstore? And I have a few for this one. Actually, several of these questions I have more than one answer for. One of them is if it calls it a coming-of-age story, and this is weird because I love a lot of books that could be classified as coming of age, but for some reason seeing that written on a book or having a book marketed that way is an instant turnoff for me. I think probably because I associate that with like the kinds of books that we had to read in school, many of which I did not like. Yeah, I don't know what it is, but for some reason I connect that description with books I don't like and like characters I don't like. Like, I do like character-focused books, but for some reason hearing something described as a coming-of-age story is not a way to get me to pick it up, even though I have really enjoyed lots of books that are coming-of-age stories. I guess the secret is just to not tell me that's what it is. I don't know. Also, if a synopsis mentions that the book is told through flashbacks or that it has a lot of flashbacks, turn off for me. I hate reading flashback scenes. I think kind of by definition, they're not as interesting as the main story, which is kind of how I feel about prologues too. And I think that there are other ways to give the reader background information that don't involve that. Also, anything that indicates like a really unusual structure for a book, like told in alternating timelines or like whatever, like I generally don't like those. There's a couple of exceptions, but in general, I feel like doing weird things with the structure of a novel is kind of, it feels gimmicky to me, and it feels like it kind of like it's meant to distract from other, I guess, weaknesses of the book. Like, it's just not something I enjoy. I find it frustrating. I find it a little bit pretentious sometimes, and I also think that if you have a well done story with good characters and an interesting story and like your writing is good and everything, like you have enough going for you. Like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel by like mixing up your chronology or whatever. Number 5, what trope makes you want to scream into the abyss? And I only picked one for this one, even though I could probably think of a lot more. And I have to go with the one that TV Tropes calls babies ever after. I hate this. And the reason I hate this is because, for one thing, it's so prevalent across all kinds of media. It's like, if you want to show that a couple is happy together, you have to flash forward and show them like with children or with a baby. And that's not to take away from people who do want that in their life, but I think by constantly showing that as a signal that your relationship is healthy and that people love each other, I think that's a mistake. Like the decision to have children or to be a parent, I don't think that should be a result or a signal of how much you love a person. Like, I'm not saying that those things can't be related. Like, obviously you want to love a person who you want to like be a parent with. That's important to love that person. But I don't think it should be like a check of how much 2 characters are in love. I think I probably wouldn't have as big of an issue with this one if it wasn't so common, because when it becomes so common, it starts feeling like media is telling you that's the only way to show that you love people and that everybody has to have children. And that's just not true. Like, it's implying that if you don't have a real love story, and I don't like that. Number 5, what book induces rage the moment it is mentioned in your presence? So I have a lot of books that I don't like, but I have to pick Night Film by Marisha Pessl. I know it was super popular on BookTube a couple years ago. It's still, I think, very well regarded, and I thought this was honestly one of the worst books I have ever read. I mean, in terms of writing, in terms of characterization, in terms of plot, which was just all over the place. It was incredibly unsatisfying, and it was also like there were some really disturbing scenes involving the main character, who's like this 30 or 40-year-old man being come onto by this young girl. I think she was like late teens, maybe early 20s. It was just like super gross, and honestly I was surprised that a woman was the author for this book, because like I tend to automatically give women writers more credit for things like that, even though clearly that's something that is not always deserved. Like, it felt like it was written by the kind of male writer who doesn't know how to write women. And like the main character was just so insufferable. He was really stupid, and he was supposed to be this like investigative reporter or something, and he was just like so dumb. Like I said, the characters were really poorly developed. The actual plot, it was interesting for a while. Like some of the mystery elements did kind of keep me engaged and kept me guessing, but the way things played out, like some scenes along the way were just so weird and out of nowhere, and not in like an interesting weird way. And the resolution was just colossally unsatisfying. And like that book is so long too. It does not need to be that long. I think it was like almost 600 pages. I read it for Tome Topple one year, and it is truly still one of my least favorite books I've read, and I think one of the worst books I have read. The book does actually make me angry because I just don't understand why it is so loved. I think on every level it fails as a story, plus some of the like just kind of icky elements regarding the main character. So yeah, hate that book. Not for me. Number 6, what could someone say when recommending a book to you that could break your trust in them? Unreliable narrator. That's a trope I hate. I think it's really lazy. Like, if you have to lie to your reader in order to make your story engaging, I think you're not doing so great as an author. If all of the characters are terrible people, I don't find that interesting. Kind of along the same lines, I'm not a big fan of villain origin stories. And like I've said for some of these other questions, there are a few exceptions to this rule. Like Wuthering Heights has very few good characters, and that's a book that I actually like. And Heartless by Marissa Meyer is a villain origin story that I actually really love. But in general, these are not ways to get me to pick up a book. Also, Dark Academia. I cannot even describe how incredibly uninterested I am in that like subgenre or trend. I don't like it at all. And also the opposite of Kate's answer, if somebody says that the characters aren't very good but the plot is really good, I'm definitely a character-focused reader. Like, there are definitely certain kinds of plots that I enjoy more than others, but in general, the most important thing for me is to care about who the plot is happening to. Because you could have the most like engaging and interesting story in the world, but if your characters aren't done well, why should I care? Like, why should I care about the plot or the world or anything else about the story if the people who are actually in it, who it's actually happening to, are not very well developed, are not people that I care about what happens to them? Number 7, what author would you like to fight? For me, that has to be V.E. Schwab and her fake feminism. I am so tired of it. Like, I just want to ask her, like, if I got the opportunity to ask V.E. Schwab any question, I would ask her, do you think women besides you are people? Yes or no? Because truly, from her books, it does not seem like she does. And usual caveat, which I have read 2 of her books, which I liked the story well enough at the time. I have DNF'd a different one of her books. I might have DNF'd 2 of her books, actually. Her style of female characters is just not for me. It is so very much not like other girls, and she just beats you over the head with it. Like, the only female characters worth anything are V.E. Schwab's very, very narrow ideas of what strong women can be, and I hate that. I find it very restrictive. I find it very condescending, and honestly, like, okay, so I said that most of the answers on here are kind of petty. I feel like this one's a little less petty, because I truly do feel like V.E. Schwab's vast popularity with her books and her female characters and everything, I really do think that's like having an effect on publishing, because I feel like slowly but surely we were starting to kind of transition out of the like, you cannot be a feminine girl and be strong or be intelligent, into more of a like, there are lots of different ways to be a strong woman or to be a competent woman. And I feel like V.E. Schwab, with how popular she is honestly starting to affect that. Like, she's bringing it back, and I don't like that. Like, I really do feel like her immense popularity is having a negative effect on female characters in general, and just like how restrictive they are. Also, on a much more petty level, I don't like her social media presence. Like, there's things she's done in the past, like kind of like talking crap about like popular subgenres and then announcing her next book in that subgenre, which I just think is an interesting choice. And just on a more personal level, it's like, I don't want to continue to give money or to support an author who, judging by her books, thinks I'm stupid because I wear lipstick. Like, I just don't want to do that. Number 8, what character would you like to dropkick? I have 2 from the same series, and those are Alina and Mal from the Grisha trilogy. Alina is just so stupid, like so dumb, really just flat and underdeveloped. She has atrocious taste in men, and I just like, there is absolutely nothing about her personality that is interesting. Like, she has no personality. Like, I truly don't know anything about her except that she has amazing magic abilities and she's obsessed with Mal. Like, that's really all we get. I know that there's like some attempts at like an internal struggle regarding like which side of the conflict she's going to take, or like, you know, trying to come to terms with her powers. Those things fell very flat for me, and I have read the entire trilogy. I just think she's a really bland main character. And then Mal, I just despise. Like, I truly would like to dropkick him. He's like that really obnoxious type of male character who like does not notice the female lead, does not treat her well, until other guys who are nicer to her actually start paying attention. And then he's like, whoa, 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 I like claimed you a long time ago. Yeah, I'm sleeping around with other girls, but like, we're meant to be together, so you can't talk to other men. And I hate that shit. I just hate how insecure Mal is. He actually says to her that her being so powerful and being competent and being independent threatens him, and he doesn't like it. And the way the book is written and the way that things play out, like, goes along with what he says. It like kind of endorses Mal's view, which is that Alina was too powerful for Mal's comfort. And I hate that. I really, really hate Mal. Like, Alina annoys me and I think she's like a failed character, but Mal annoys me, is a failed character, and I think is honestly kind of a toxic boyfriend. Like, he's the worst. Number 9, if Goodreads was a person, what would you bully them for? And with the caveat that Kate mentioned, which is bullying is not okay. Kate does not condone bullying, nor do I. But in the context of the question, I would bully Goodreads for not having half stars. I find that very annoying. I like to use half stars. I think that it'd be a relatively small change to make, and I know that they would have to like redo a lot of the like programming and like averages and everything, but it's not like they would have to add a new feature. It would really just be making a feature they have more specific or having more options. Like, I'm sure it would still be an undertaking. Like, I don't program computers or websites, so I don't know. But like, given Goodreads their like resources, I think they could do it. Although I'm one of those weird people who actually likes Goodreads. I don't mind the user interface. I don't necessarily want a book tracking website that is more about social media and like getting recommendations. Like, I use Goodreads to track my books, and I think it does a good job with that. The only thing that I really hate about Goodreads is that they are now owned by Amazon. Not a fan of that. Number 10, if you could ban anything trivial from all books forever, what would it be? And for me, that is the 3rd act breakup scene. This happens a lot in romance. Like, basically, I think every romance novel I have read, and I know I haven't read a ton, but from what I've heard from other people, it's pretty standard in most cases. But it also happens a lot in contemporary books or any kind of like book that has a strong romantic element. Like the 3rd act breakup, like the last minute misunderstanding or miscommunication or fight over something that seems out of character, just so that like we can have the big finish when the characters come back together at the end. I hate this. I am disappointed in us as a book reading society that we have allowed this to become like so mandatory almost in romances or in any books that have romances in them. Like, I hate it. I don't think it's well done. There has been one book I have read that I think it was actually justified, and I actually think the way it was done was really good, and that is The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. I actually think that that conflict is something that it made sense to come up when it did, and it made sense that this would come between the characters, like especially on Olive's side, the main female lead. I would have thought less of her if this hadn't been an issue for her, and I just really liked the way that was done. In a weird way, it was, I think, like, not one of my favorite scenes, but like one of the scenes that stood out to me the most, because this is such an annoying trope handled so well. So it is possible, I think, to do it in a way that is believable. It is possible to do this trope well, but honestly, I could do without it because so many of the ones I have read have been done so badly. Yeah, like just have it take longer for your characters to get together, so that you don't have all the space to fill with them breaking up and getting back together. This would also make the relationships more of a slow development type of thing, which is something I love. Like, there are other ways to add conflict to the characters rather than this like dramatic breakup like right before the end. Okay everybody, so that was the Humbook tag. Thank you so much, Kate, for tagging me. I had a ton of fun doing this and just complaining about things in books. As for people I'm going to tag, I don't actually have anyone ready because like the title of this tag is kind of like Christmassy, so I don't know if people would consider this like a Christmas specific tag. But if you would like to do this tag at any time during the year, I tag you. I had a lot of fun with it. It was a very cathartic one to do. Also because I think this is going up very close to Christmas. If you guys are celebrating, I hope you have a wonderful Christmas. If you're not, I hope that you just have a really wonderful day or like few days. I hope that you are safe. I hope that you are doing as well as you can. I hope that you take care of yourselves as well as you can. Stay home, stay safe. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye!